مرحبا بكم الناس الكل في الحلقة الثالثة من نقاش الأفلام ضمن برنامج صحة شريبتك، البرنامج المهرجان الافتراضي للأفلام. اليوم الموضوع باش يكون حول فيلم سيريل أنيس The President's Visit, la visite du président, sous la thématique, la deuxième thématique qui est la préservation des libertés, politiques, individuelles et fondamentales. Donc on va poser la question, je vais discuter avec Cyril autour de son film et les questions vont être en langue anglaise. Donc bonsoir Cyril, hello, we are happy to welcome you tonight with us. So thank you Cyril for the film. How did the writing of the film begin, and what was the inspiration behind it? If you can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the inspiration comes from the very enriching political situation we have here in Lebanon now. Okay, more specifically in 2016, when I was writing the film, it had been of political vacuum, so like no president for around 2 years and a half.
Yeah.
And so it was like this very weird political situation that we found ourselves in, where we didn't have a leader. The country was leaderless. But somehow it was as functional and as dysfunctional as it had always been. And then in 2016 we did elect a president, and people had so much hope, like now now we have a president, now we're going to have a country, everything is going to work fine. And obviously to no one's surprise, it was still as functional and as dysfunctional as it was before. So really I really started wondering, like what is this system that we have in place, and is it any useful? Is there any fruitful for the daily lives of people? And I was really wondering, like, why people put so much hope into our political system, given that it was so pointless and so useless. And yeah, so like all of these questions that could sound quite somber and quite dark turned into something, into this approach, into this comedic approach and this satirical approach. The situation is so desperate that we might as well make fun of it and just laugh of the situation we are in. So it's the combination of all of these thoughts, all of these questions, all of these jokes, and the absurdity of the political system in Lebanon that pushed me to write this farce, or like this satirical drama that turned out to be The President's Visit.
Yeah, thank you. But in Lebanese cinema, we have often seen film that tackle political issues in a serious and direct manner, especially after the Civil War, for example, and all the conflict that has been in Lebanon. But in your movie, however, is rather sarcastic and subtle, and one can say a comedy. So can you talk maybe more about this combination in your film between comedy but also the political issues, and especially your sarcastic approach on the film?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right.
It's like it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different in what we used to see in Lebanese films.
No, you're right that typically, Lebanese cinema has been quite, has been approaching a more dramatic approach when it comes to tackling these issues. But also, you got to keep in mind that most of these films that you're talking about have been made by a generation that has lived the war and that has lived all of these conflicts. So for my generation, I was born towards the end of the Civil War, so in the late 80s. So I haven't really lived the war, but I do live the consequences of the war. So you know, when I'm talking about the consequences of the war, I'm mostly talking about the dysfunction that is currently in our system. So you know, not having lived the horrific war, but living only the consequences, there's like this weird, you know, this weird situation where drama really becomes comedy, and you know, as a result, where people of my generation, of course, I'm talking more about, you know, myself and not the entire generation, but I feel that, you know, people of my generation just look at the consequences and we just wonder, like, what the hell happened? And it is, you know, precisely that the fact that it's never been approached with a more comedic approach, although really, you know, it is a comedy. Like if you watch Lebanese news, you know, if you really try to understand how the system functions, it's completely farcical. It's a theater, like it's theatrics. It's a show. Enemies become friends and friends become enemies. You know, typically we say like the friends of my friends are my friends, or like the enemies of my enemies are my friends. That doesn't apply at all, I think, in the Arab world in general, but more specifically in Lebanon, because it's all a mess. It's like, oh, this guy is my friend, but he's also my enemy. But he supports this one who's my enemy and my friend, and it gives you such a headache that it's like, you know, let's pull the camera and just make fun of this whole thing.
Also, and the movie does not belong to any particular time period, but rather presents a critical portrait of the political situation and the political scene in Lebanon in the past year. I mean, the power, the corruption, the need to always be ahead. And I mean by this, for example, here I talk about the fisherman and the owner of the soap shop in the film. They have always the need to be in the head of everything. So could you tell us more about this point in the writing of the scenario of the script?
Yeah, you know, it was quite important not to make it specific to a time period, but you know, to make it a bit more generic, because also, you know, again, the people that have been ruling us have been the same for the past 30, 40 years. I mean, you know, the same people who did the war all of a sudden just changed outfit, and then they put suits and they put ties, and they decided that now we're going to do politics. But really, you know, it's the same kind of war. But there is this this mentality, at least for, you know, people who support political parties. There is this mentality of, it's almost like the political figures are divine. They're like a divine figure that we're always trying to please, always trying to impress. It's, you know, really, when you see that a certain politician is going to visit a town or a city, or, you know, anything of that kind, it really, you start seeing flags and pictures, and streets are closed, and really it's you know, the whole town or the whole city gets turned upside down. But for what? To just impress this politician. So you know, it seems that people are always in the service of politicians, and they forget that it's the other way around. The politicians are at our service because they are the employees of the nation, and we are the bosses. But somehow this you know, this whole concept that is really the basis of democracy is that it's called public servant. You're a public servant. You're here. You're the servant of the public. Here it's been twisted around, and the politician really becomes this divinity that people are trying to impress. So really, it was, you know, it was important to show, at least for me in the film, how people start competing for the attention of the politician and start, you know, to try to impress that political figure, as if they're ever going to get anything in return. So, you know, that's the irony of it. And you know, by the end of it, we start killing each other for it. Fine, during the war, it was like we were literally killing each other for, you know, for the sake of the warlords and the politicians. And now it's a bit more metaphorical. It's more like, you know, political deadlocks and things like that. But we really destroy each other in the service of the people who are supposed to be serving us in the first place.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's talk also about your visual and aesthetic universe in the movie. It reminds us, it's very colorful, it's very sophisticated, it's very complex. I mean, it seems simple, but in reality, it's very sophisticated and very complex. And it reminds us a little bit of the cinema of Wes Anderson, for example. So, how it was your visual approach in the film? So, what are your references when making the film? And if you can tell us about the shooting process of the film and the location of the film, so how it was filmed. Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot of questions. I'm going to try to take them one at a time.
Okay, yeah, take your time. Yeah. So the first question is for the visual. Yeah, the aesthetic. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you know, the story has a bit of this this fable aspect. You know, it's not really, you know, 100% grounded in reality as a story. You know, everything is taken, is pushed a bit to the extreme. It's very farcical, very satirical, and that's of course in the service of pushing the satire and the comedy of it. But you know, at the same time, it's not completely colorful, because it was important to portray this place that probably was once beautiful. It was once colorful. You know, a few decades ago, but now everything's rotten, everything's forgotten. It really is this town where time stands still and it doesn't advance, but it's really only seeming to rot on the outside. So, you know, it was important to work with the production designer on faded colors, like rotten textures. As you can see, the soap shop, you feel that there's a lot of history in there. The walls are completely worn out. They have a mix of colors that really renders no colors at all. So you know, that was how we were approaching this world of broken dreams, if you want. So like, you know, this magical aspect that's completely been washed out by time and by reality.
Yeah, and did you have references for that? Visual and aesthetic references for that?
One of the big references was for production design and for tone as well, was Aki Kaurismäki, so the Finnish director. You know, in that approach where you can say that Wes Anderson has a bit of Kaurismäki, but of course Wes Anderson is much cleaner and much more polished. But like, you know, Kaurismäki has this aspect of really you know, these faded textures. So you know, of course it was a major reference. Another you know, filmmaker that I admire a lot, you know, especially with the way he tackles big subjects with such humor and simplicity, is the Palestinian filmmaker Elia Sleiman. So you know, obviously a combination of Kaurismäki and Elia Sleiman, and you know, weirdly, I was going back also to a bit of Kusturica. So you know, some of his films in that fantastical aspect and that, you know, extravagance that gets reflected in the characters and also in the wardrobe and art direction. So the production design in general. So these were the references that I was looking at from a visual aspect. Then you were talking about the shooting process and the location. So you know, having that in mind,
the location and the shooting process.
So
how it was,
having that world in mind. So we started scouting places. So we didn't find like one village that had everything that we wanted. So the village you see in the film is actually a collection of real villages in Lebanon. So it's like a house here, a street there. But
it's a construction of places. It's a construction of places on the
you know, I'm talking about the exteriors, but for the most part, it was filmed in northern Lebanon, in a beautiful town called Anfe. It's a bit south of Tripoli, which is our second biggest city in Lebanon. So it's like a small little town that's next to this gigantic town, and because it's by the sea, because of the humidity, it does have like all of these beautiful walls that are completely worn out, and then they paint them again, and then they're worn out and over again. So it does have that value of time that's almost imprinted on the walls. So that was for the exteriors. For the interiors, so a lot of it was like built from scratch. Like it was treated a bit like a studio, especially when it comes to his soap shop. It was just built from scratch. So it was us trying to match the interiors to the exteriors that we had found. But yeah, the production designer did a very good job at creating this world by using a collection of different several different locations. But his house on the outside, for example, is really it's a real house that's almost like just in the middle of the sea. It's a beautiful house. It just happens to be there. It's really quite breathtaking to see it. Like that's one of the buildings that was left completely untouched because it was just so beautiful as it was. Now for the shooting process, so yeah, as I told you, that was how we came up with the visual approach. When it comes to the shoot, so we had a lot of actors. As you can see, we had a lot of extras. So part of the casting was to try to find people who have naturally either like a comedic vibe. There's some people who are just naturally funny, and or to have this kind of like a tired face. You can see it sometimes in the extras. They just look very tired, and it's because they just happen to have that vibe. So as we did the casting, we were really looking for non-actors, like non-professional actors, to give either the comedic vibe or that the more like tired vibe. But the main parts were professional actors. So it was working with the actors had a lot of rehearsals and stuff, and we had storyboards. Everything was quite well planned.
And how your characters, you have like three principal characters in the film: the fisherman, the owner of the soap shop, and the observer. Can you tell us more how it was writing the writing process of your principal three characters on the film? Can you tell us more?
Yeah. So the main character, it was we wanted to create this this character that really his entire future was really assigned to him at birth. It's like his father had a soap shop, so he had to take the soap shop. He had to be that person, and he's kind of this socially awkward person because he lives in the shadow of his father, who was the Sultan of Sabun, the Sultan of soap. So like he had this great reputation, and then you see that from the very early scenes, you see that our character doesn't have that vibe at all. It's not necessarily what he wanted to do, but he inherited of it, and that's quite typical of how jobs are transmitted from one generation to the other in Lebanon, and to a certain extent in the Arab world. So he's this this man that probably had aspirations or dreams of his own, but the society he finds himself in is really you know, cutting all of his aspirations short. It's like, no, you're the soap maker, and that's what you're gonna do. And he's kind of like the derision of all the people in the town. They don't treat him with a lot of respect. They just, you know, so well, and then of course he has like this love interest that he's trying to get, that he's trying to impress, and you know, clearly we see that it's not, you know, working for him very well. But then as soon as he gets the call of the president, and then there's a certain spotlight on him, immediately he gets a big head, and he thinks that through that he's going to get all the importance that he was lacking in, you know, in his status quo. So yeah, that was him. The role of his uncle, so like the main fisherman. So you know, he's the opposite. So he's like he needs to treat his nephew pretty badly to feel better about himself, and of course, like, he cannot stand for a second that his nephew can have the attention, and you know, that it's taken away from him. So you start having this family feud and this family fight, which is also, you know, quite typical. We see sometimes like you know, fights between families here that are, you know, a brother fighting with a brother, which you know, makes no sense. And then you mentioned as a third character the observer.
The woman, Monia.
The woman. Okay, yeah, okay.
She's
okay.
like she's she's very detached.
Right. So yeah. So okay, obviously she's set as his love interest. So he's, you know, she is the one that he's trying to get all along, obviously. And then you know, by the end of the film, when he sees that he lost her, then for him it's, I lost everything. You know, as he's walking in the town, and then, you know, he goes to her and she doesn't even speak to him. So that's when really everything is lost for him. And so you know, the way I was approaching her is, I see myself a lot in her, you know, as this, or you know, people of my generation who are not really responsible for all the mess happening in the society all around, but is somehow in the midst of it. And you know, it's that observing character that's quite disillusioned with all the characters around, and then even the character that she thought was innocent and was you know, warm-hearted, turned out to be as bad as all the others. You know, as soon as a bit of power was given to him. So you know, all of his vices and greed and selfishness just came out. So it's really this disillusioned character that's quite hopeless, seeing the environment all around. I'm not saying I'm 100% like her, but that's the one that I identify with the most.
I don't know if the filmmaker, I mean the filmmaker see himself as an observer always in his film. For example, you are writing a film and you have the role or a character of an observer, and when you have this character, you said it's myself, it's me as a filmmaker. I don't know if so
maybe you know, it depends a lot on the story. Like I could have developed much more her character and then really, you know, work on this love story, but then it puts her in the middle of the story, and then I would definitely not tell you that I identify with her or I relate to her. It's just the nature of the story just gave me this opportunity to have this character.
So we'll talk. I will ask you some questions with the character of Monia. So she also co-edited the film with you, and she co-wrote the film, right?
Yeah. Well, I worked a lot with her. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you also started together in some web series for Beirut, I Love You. I remember this series. Yeah. So could you tell us more about this collaboration and also about the importance of working with a collective or with someone in cinema or in art in general? How it's I feel that it's very important in your work to co-write, to co-produce, or to co-edit a film with someone. And in your case is this is it's Monia who works a lot with you. Yeah.
Well,
So.
I think it has a lot to do with how we started. Because initially around 9 years ago now. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, 9 years ago, both of us were not filmmakers, but we really wanted to be. We really wanted to work in film. We were kind of obsessed with films, watching a lot of films, trying to learn as much as possible, and then we did like this very amateur short film where it was just me and her. We kind of did everything because we were just having fun. And then the short film turned into a TV series that was also put on the web. Anyway, long story short, we were co-directing, co-writing, we were acting in it, etc. And then, a few years after, we kind of split ways in the sense where I wanted, to direct my own stuff, and she wanted to direct her own stuff. Because we were interested in different topics, but that didn't mean that we were gonna artistically divorce completely. But on the contrary, she's the person that I trust the most, when it comes to creative feedback, and vice versa. So now we don't direct together, but we always support each other in other positions. So I've produced some of her work. She's co-written, some of my work. We always exchange scripts. We always exchange edits and cuts. And for me, I think it's very important to have her because I think that she's the person that's closest to me in terms of understanding what it is that I'm trying to do, and then she can. So that puts her in a great position to advise me on how to make it better. So that's why you see our names in each other's work very often.
Maybe also it's also the independent cinema can be in this way with this collective form, writing with someone. So so can you tell us more about the production of the film, the start, how it was exactly?
So this was my thesis film for my master's degree. So it's like my graduation film, and because I was studying in a university in the US, so it started there. It started with an American producer that was interested in foreign cinema, international cinema. So we did get an American grant to kick off the film, and then we got the support of other Arab grants. So the Doha Film Institute and a smaller grant from the Ministry of Culture in Lebanon. So that's how we gathered the money. And then we also did some crowdfunding campaign. We did a lot of begging. We begged a lot of people to just work for free, which tends to be the case, on independent Arab cinema student. So I had a great crew that really believed in the project, and I owe the film to them, of course. But since it's a complicated world, and the production design and the big cast and everything, we did need some financing to get us started. So it started in the US, but it's, it had always been intended to be shot in Lebanon. And then I got my Lebanese producer, Mark Fadil, to join in, and then he did his whole crew. It was 7 days of shoot. Well, 6 plus 1. And yeah, post-production was around a month, so like 4 weeks. And
yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you. So your feature film, The Swing, المرجوحة, this after, is very different from all that you have done before. The web series, this film, your short film. It's a very intimate and documentary. So I'm asking you, if you can you talk a little bit about this, and also in which cinema or which cinema wave or school do you identify yourself?
Okay. So yeah, that last question I can probably answer it in 50 years. So like I need to make more stuff to then look back and be like, I think I was a documentary filmmaker after all. Or like, oh, okay, looks like that documentary was a one-off thing. No, but okay.
Because the documentary is very, very different from the short film. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the way it happened with the documentary is that, so I had always been interested in talking about that age. So like the senior age, le troisième âge. People, the people who are closer, closer to the 80s, 80s, 90s, and I was particularly interested in my own grandfather and my grandmother. Just to I had like a million questions about the mindset, the thought process, like what exactly you're thinking when you're closer to the finish line, when you look back at your life, what exactly how do you perceive life, what are some of the wisdom that you can share after 90 years of existence. So these were like thoughts and ideas that I've always had, but I knew that if I would go and I would film them, it would be something really for me, because it's not necessarily something that people would be interested to watch, like the daily lives of the filmmakers' grandparents. But then there was like a tragedy in my family, and then I lost my aunt like quite abruptly, and this had like a great repercussion on the family, because at the time my grandfather was physically and emotionally very weak, so his heart wasn't operating at its full capacity, so it was we were told not to really tell him, because he cannot take an emotional shock. So really you had this couple living, so my grandfather and my grandmother, where my grandmother knew that her daughter had passed away, but my grandfather did not know, because it was impossible to tell him. So he had like this great conflict, between this couple that had lived together for 65 years, and that for me was like the ultimate challenge that they would have in their married life as a couple. So now I that was like a drama or like a narrative that could be explored. So I started writing a fiction script about it. But then very quickly I thought, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I writing a fiction when the story is really happening here? And it's quite interesting. It's quite powerful. So I decided to start filming that. And then so that's how I got into this documentary approach. But of course I was approaching it very much from the fiction, with a fiction mindset. Like, what's the arc, what's the narrative, how does it start, how does it end, and things like that. and slowly I was, driving away from the narrative and going back to what really interested me in the first place, which is like a reflection on this age. And I knew that now I had a film, because I did have the excuse of the narrative. How are we going to tell my grandfather? How is he going to react? How is it going to, affect all the relationships? So like I knew that dramatic question could sustain the film, and through that question, I could really film their daily lives. And now it would actually become interesting because there's so much unspoken between them, and there's this whole secret, there's the elephant in the room. So that propelled me into making this documentary, and it is, drastically different from the other stuff that I've done, but it's because really the story was presented to me, and I could only witness it and film it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So that's a bit the story of this thing, but that really gave me a taste for documentary filmmaking, because it's so liberating, to really be in the moment and trying to capture stuff, and it's extremely enriching. So like after that, I also did a short documentary that I'm finishing right now. I went to the other side of the spectrum, so I was filming like newborns and premature babies. So I went from like the 90-year-olds to the day one of life.
So this is not this is not your new film. You are writing actually a new film, I guess, a new fiction.
A fiction, yeah. A fiction called It's a Sad and Beautiful World. So that
it's very different also. It's very different from all that you have done before also.
I guess so. I mean, it's gonna sound extremely weird, but it's kind of a combination between the swing and the president's visit. I know that they sound so different that it's like how can you even put them together? But because for me the swing has this. I mean, it's a love story after all. It's the story of 65 years of love of this couple, and It's a Sad and Beautiful World also traces a love story between two characters that are very antagonistic in their approaches to life, just like my grandfather and my grandmother were extremely different, and like two characters that could not be more on two different ends of the spectrum, but somehow it resulted into like this amazing love story, and it worked. So the two characters of It's a Sad and Beautiful World also are extremely different. So they're kind of inspired with the two characters of my documentary, but it does trace their love story over a period of 40 years. So like it jumps through time, through the big milestones of the history of Lebanon. And we see the repercussion of all of these social events on our couple. So in a way, like it traces the story of the couple in parallel to the story of the country, and that's where the parallel to this visit comes along, because it's it's more a story of the society and the country than just a particular character, at least in the president's visit. So if you put these two together, you'll get a sense
combination
of what I'm writing right now.
Thank you, Cyril. I think that we are done tonight. If you want to say something, you want to say something for us, maybe before leaving?
No, I mean, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to take part of an online festival. seeing that all the other festivals are being postponed or being cancelled, and everyone's very lost. So really, I applaud you and the organizers of this festival for putting this festival up on its feet so quickly and creating this platform. So thank you, and thanks for programming my film and having this chat.
Thank you, Cyril. Good luck for your new film. Good work, and maybe see you soon here in Tunis.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll
Yalla.
meet you in person in a movie theater where everyone goes and experience.
Yeah, and we will discuss the film. Yeah. Thank you very much, Cyril.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye. Ciao.
Ciao. Good night.
Bye.